final episode. We are just chatting about tourism, and I'm Frankie, your host, and I'm here with my team from Xperience Stockholm. And we have some experience guiding in Stockholm and creating a company together to bring you some new travel experiences. So I thought it would be fun to pose some questions to our team about how they feel about the state of tourism in Stockholm right now. What do you guys think what is missing right now in Stockholm? Stockholm's tourism offer. What do you think people are lacking right now in the city?
I think we miss some sources where you can find activities and reviews. Because right now it's all different sources, big and small, for every different activity, or even the own web page, or they buy advertisement here and there. So it's kind of hard to promote, and both sides. It's hard to promote as a business if you're not a big business, and it's hard to find events if you're not looking for Beyonce concert. If you're looking for something small, the jazz, some small jazz band, or maybe some activity with your neighbors, they exist. You just don't know about them.
Mm. Yeah. That's still a problem, I think, today. Yep. It was a problem when we started the company, and it's a problem still.
Oh, a little thing more. I had comments from my guests from the tour that they came to Stockholm for just 2 or 3 days because they were not sure if there's anything worth to see. So abroad, people don't know what we have, and we have a lot.
Mm. Yeah. And I think that's a very common comment. I get that a lot. Oh my God, the city's so amazing. How come I never heard about it? And I didn't know that there was so much to do. Now I only booked a day here, and now I'm off to Iceland, and hopefully there I'll spend a whole week. So I think there is definitely a promotion problem, lack of promotion, lack of branding, but also, it is the confusion of where do I find information. So with that being said, I do want to do a little plug. Alessia, where can they find things to do every week?
On our Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and our webpage. We have our links.
But mostly on Instagram. Every Monday, Alessia and Anna, they are, coordinating our social media. They actually go and curate a list of events and things going on in the city. So whether you're a local or you're a visitor just for that week, we give you a full list of the funnest, most niche, alternative, cool. Go and follow. And every Monday you'll find it. You'll find some recommendations there from our team. Okay, maybe for those of us who have worked in a free walking tour company, we know these are popular. What are some of the challenges or problems with free walking tours?
Don't get me started.
Why shouldn't people take free walking tours? Because I think people don't understand what they actually mean.
I don't think it's a matter of not taking them. I think they're of great benefit for those who want to take a tour that maybe don't have a budget. I think it also depends on the place and a company's ethos. If they are if it's a company using the platforms like Guru Walk or Civitatis or I've now
free tours.
Free tours, yeah. Is that in some cases the company doesn't pay their guides a fixed rate.
I think that's most often the case.
Yeah.
In all the other walking tours that I've been around Europe. Yeah. It's always like that.
Which I don't think is, not that it's bad. It's just, it can be exploitative. And also considering that some of them also take a bite out of the tips as well. It depends on company rules, whatever. So it really varies. The other thing is that if it's something that you don't want to have big groups, they tend to have a lot of groups because it's free and you pay what you can and there's no fixed price. They need to maximize the profits. So I feel bites into user experience. I would say those are probably the first things that come to mind for them. I don't think they're inherently bad, but they tend to have potentially harmful practices for the employees or for their, if you're not solo, doing it yourself as an individual. Yeah, there can be some things.
Oscar?
Yeah, there are many factors and many situations, but the business model per se might be abusive for the guides. who are usually students, they need the extra, but at the same time, as workers, they are in a disadvantage because sometimes they are not having contracts or fair contracts. Sometimes they are not even paying taxes or enough taxes. So they are in this disadvantage in which if they don't work, they don't earn anything. So the day that they have an accident, the day that they are sick, they don't have these basic insurances that all of the other kind of jobs could offer. So yeah, it can be an abusive business model.
Yeah.
And also the fact of being paid according to your charisma or what someone else think you're worth, depending on how much you connected with that person, is also abusive.
I think an extension of that as well is because of that kind of thing, you have these big groups. Sometimes, of course, reviews are left, they can be traced back to a particular guide, and the reviews reflect ill management in the sense of like group size, and that may affect performance or like performance-based awards, you know, if the company does something like that, or it affects the psyche of the guide. I think at some point, if it's reinforced and the company's like, oh, you need to pull in more, you know, profits, you know, and it's a thing of, well, look, you're not charging a certain price. I'm not going to ask people for more money, because unfortunately that is an expectation that sometimes they have. Like, oh, of course, because these platforms, how it typically is the person or the company using it, they pay per booking or per unit or whatever, however they want to name it, which is completely fine. It's about €2. It depends on the platform. But of course, they need to cover that cost. So obviously it's ideal if you earn a certain amount, and some people only pay €2. So it's like, oh, well, now you made no money. But now that's put on the guide. So they've still worked those hours, but the company has to, you know, so how do they cover that? And that's, again, kind of on that exploitative thing as well. Or a thing of like, ask them for more money, push them for more money. And it's just, at that point, it just feels kind of scammy to ask for an amount when there's no advertised set amount and you have that expectation. So yeah, but yeah, you actually brought a very, very good point of if there aren't any contracts, at least when it comes to things like that offer social security for whoever, whether you're in Europe or not, right? Because there's probably health insurance, things that work differently across the continent, and I'm not going to comment too much on that. But yeah, if you don't work, you don't make money. You don't get money. So if you have a broken foot, whatever, there is no money in that. But the company still makes money whether you're working or not, because there's other people working usually for that company. So they can take however long off. They don't have to work at all. They would still make a bite out of that, which sure as you could say that's the whole advantage of being a CEO or whatever. But the point is none of the guides get benefits like that to some extent. Paid leave, paid sick, that stuff without a contract that's offered. So yeah. It depends on the company.
But I also think what Oscar was trying to get at is like fairness in pay is not equal to the performance of the guide. Like the performance of the guide could still be excellent and according to script and according to training, but what you get out of it as a guide is very relative to people's biases, conscious and unconscious, you know, prejudice against you, the weather, all kinds of conditions, and then you still don't get paid.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Or if people don't show up, not enough people show up, it's no longer worthwhile for you to do the tour as a guide, but you still do it because you were, you know, if you don't work, you don't make money. So I think that's another element of it. So, okay, and going from free walking tours to, you know, pre-booked, prepaid, like ours are, so that everybody gets a fair wage, how do you guys feel that we show Stockholm a little bit more authentically? What do you think our company does that's a bit different? Maybe Alessia or Anna, do you want to speak to that?
I think that we are, first of all, we are not only the company for tourism, so not only for people who come to visit as tourists, but also for locals. So we do also events, and we want to do more events further on, and to connect with the local community, with the locals, people who moved here, people who live here, the small businesses, and we try to work with them, collaborate, do projects. And of course, we also show Stockholm from our perspective. We have this tour like must-sees, that we think are the best things. But we also have like unique tours that we created by ourselves with a lot of work from everyone in the group in the company. So I think it's unique.
I agree with all of that. And I also think that we have smaller groups. You used a word for that yesterday.
Semi-private.
Yeah, we have smaller groups, semi-private groups. And because of that, and also because we also really want to connect with people, we managed to get this to provide this experience, and also to have this experience where rather than just following a script and showing a route, we do that, but we also share things that we have in common with these people. And I think that provides like a better experience in terms of it's not just one size fits all. You have like an actual connection with the city, and you are able to show the connection that you have with the city to those people, and you end up having a good connection with them as well. So I think we have a better experience ourselves when doing the job. At the same time that I think most people leave our tours with a very good impression of Stockholm, learning about the city, but with the feeling that they had an experience, they had a connection with someone. It was real. It was not just something else that they did in one of the cities that they passed by. And I think that's very important.
I agree.
If I may add, like as an extension of what you said, and connecting to the previous question about free walking tours or just those kind of things, in the sense of where free walking tours, I mean, they can control the group size, but in the most of the cases where they have very large groups of 25 to 30 people to maximize profits, it's very hard to make that connection with people. Like there were times where, you know, you would find a review of like, oh, it felt like the guide was talking too much to this one person. And meanwhile, maybe that was not intentioned. It was a matter of, well, this person's trying to connect, right? But you also have 30 people, 25 people who don't, they just want to get the history, right? That's what they're there for. So in the smaller groups, it's easier to be able to connect with enough people so that they all feel like they're getting that attention. And that connection with the guide and the city as well. So they can ask the questions that they want to ask about the city. That's outside of maybe the content, scripted content, learned content, whatever, the tap into the local general knowledge, niche knowledge that the guide may have. So, yeah.
I have something to add on that we also may change the script. So we adjust the tour to our guests, because first of all we do it for them. So it's for them to have fun, to enjoy Stockholm. And for me, like every time there are newcomers, I'm super happy because I want to make them love Stockholm. I want to come back again. And also, like if we have like a few people, because we also have smaller groups, or like one family, and they are more interested in the other topic than what we have in the script. And I ask like everyone is okay to, we can go closer there and see, and I can tell you another story. And if everyone is happy, like we actually change the script just for them. And I think this is perfect. It's not like you're just like kind of like reading from what you remember, and then you're done. But you're like telling the stories you know and adjusting them to people.
It's also a matter of forming connections, connecting to people, but also to form a community. We are aware that we belong in Sweden, and that's why we also make we make experiences not only for tourism but also for locals. So that's part of sustainability in our business, to make a community within Sweden.
I suppose an extension is what we mentioned, where it being hard to find something to get to know the city that you move into as an immigrant. Now, I think that informs how, like, at least how I give tours, or how I consider a tour, like design or something like that. That's definitely something coming into play. Because I mean, I love the city I live in, so I want to be able to show that to someone, like why I live here. Of all the places I could have lived, why did I move here? Why did I stick around, considering I'm from South Africa with a completely different climate and completely different social culture? I'm very familiar with.
Yeah, why?
Why did I stick around? So yeah.
Why?
Wow.
No, exactly. So, but when people ask, I tell them, right? Obviously, there's shortcomings, as they are with everything, but there's benefits for me that I prefer, that I like, that keeps me here. So,
Frankie here, quickly popping in just to remind you, if you haven't subscribed yet, that's the one thing you can do that's completely free that really helps us out. Please, just do it. Click that button, subscribe. Thank you. Thank you very much.
What I read from everything that we all said is that rather than having this kind of taking advantage of the city and taking advantage of the tourists, because we have this community thing, we want to contribute to the city that also gives us something. We want to have like a good relationship with everybody with whom we work, and we also want to have this connection with the tourists. I think it's like a fair exchange. So rather than just like providing a service, because we are so focused in community and in connection, we have like a real exchange, and that makes everybody happy, and they feel that they invested their money and also their time, and also we feel that we are investing our time on something that makes sense for everybody.
We conclude our series on our team's thoughts about living in Stockholm, being an immigrant, living in Sweden, being a tour guide, being in this industry. And I hope you've enjoyed this mini series, because we've enjoyed recording it. We're a little bit tired now of talking, but it was so nice to have everyone's thoughts. Thank you again, everyone, for sharing. And yeah, let's keep celebrating our wonderful team. Woo!